at you once again. What day is it today? Thursday morning, the day 31 of the Diddy trial. The courtroom is literally right behind me or beside me, however you want to look at it. Huge day in court today. The prosecution will start their closing arguments today. Tomorrow, the defense has their chance for closing arguments. There was a little kerfuffle yesterday about closing argument, and the prosecution's feeling like the defense are trying to play some chess moves. I will break that down to you guys in this morning's live. What up, Tez? What up, Miss Pretty Girl? Tracy, what up? Kansas, what up? Yeah, big day. I have a lot to cover before trial starts today. The line is definitely lining. The vibe is definitely vibing. Yesterday in court was more packed than usual. Even the judge got on the bench and said, wow, I have never seen this much people for a what's the name of it? A charging conference. He's like, I've never seen this many people together for a charging conference. A lot more people from Diddy's family was there. A lot more people from the press was there. It was filled. Today, I expect that to be almost doubled. Big day. This is the day that everybody is always waiting for. When you talk to legal experts, they will tell you that the case is won and lost between jury selection and closing arguments. Everything in the middle is just that stuff that is in the middle. Testimony, cross-examination, redirect, those are all ingredients for the pie or for whatever you're cooking. Today, we are going to start being served the meal. It starts out with a appetizer. Then, you'll have your soup, and then you'll have your main course. Over the 4 hours, the prosecution is going to explain to us all of the testimony, all of the evidence, what the freak-off tapes mean, what the legal ramifications are. They have 4 hours to paint a picture of why they think the jury should send Sean Diddy Combs to jail for the rest of his life. This is by far one of the most important days of Diddy's life, all right? He'll be front and center. Let me go back to the chat and see who's up in here. Life Journey, what up? Peggy, what up? Christina, what up? J Empress, what up? Queen Libra Lioness Empress, that's a long name. Amanda, what up? Kimmy, what up? Alex, what up? Coca's in here, what up? Yep, getting hectic. What up? Come on in. What up? Okay, so today, I got my Starbucks. All right, this is what we're gonna go over today, okay? I got 5 things. We're gonna go over the charge and the predicate acts that were allegedly dropped. A lot of people were a little bit confused yesterday on what that means. There was a lot of reports of people saying the charges were dropped. There were no actual charges that were dropped. There were some predicate acts that were dropped. But even with that, there's a little bit more details that I was able to find out yesterday on what exactly was omitted and dropped. So I will clarify that for you guys. Then we are going to go over quickly the charging conference once again. I did a live yesterday. We were let out literally at 8 o'clock last night. It was getting dark outside, but I still found, I think, close to an hour or 50-minute live where I broke down the charging conference and everything that went on. The judge getting off of the bench and needing a 10-minute break. Things went down yesterday. So I'll do a quick review for those who missed that. I won't go into detail, and I'll also cover a few things that I wasn't able to tell you yesterday because it was literally going dark and you couldn't even see me on the live. Then we have some information for you guys about jury deliberation and some predictions. Sorry, it's early, y'all. My coffee hasn't kicked in. We have some jury deliberation information for you and some predictions. Then I am going to go over the schedule one more time, and then if we have time, I'm going to get to some of your questions and comments. I love to do that in the morning, and I think they're letting us in at around 7:45. I heard Maureen Comey and the prosecution is going to start their closing arguments around 10. The judge said yesterday he'll come in at 9 in case there's any last minute questions from either side, okay? Beautiful day in New York, by the way. Yesterday was hot, hot, hot. It was crazy hot. Beautiful day. All right. Let's get started. Let's get started with telling you guys about, hold on, let me tell you guys about yesterday. Bombshell was over every news agency about the K word, which is the, taking somebody against their will, arson, and my watch is doing some crazy things here, sorry. And aiding and abetting SEX trafficking that was allegedly dropped, okay? Let's start with that. It's windy here. Yo, hold on a second, just want to make sure my camera doesn't fall over. So that was not discussed yesterday, just want to let you know. Yesterday during the charging conference, it was not discussed. Yes, we were discussing it, it was all over social media, but actually in the charging conference, it was not discussed. We were literally, I don't even know why I have my headset on here. Let me take this off. No need for that. Make sure you guys can hear me. Sometimes when I have that headset on, it messes up. Just give you guys a thumbs up quickly if you can hear me and the sound is totally fine, please. I'm gonna wait 1 second. Let me hear one thumbs up. You can hear me perfectly. Somebody give me one thumbs up, please. We can hear you. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate y'all. Okay, so it was not discussed yesterday, although it was all over the media. I actually heard some language about it as they were going through page for page for page. The judge asked, hey, what about page, I think, like 22? And the prosecution said, we could just take out this whole page, Your Honor. And the judge said to the defense, I don't think the defense is going to object to that. They're like, no, Your Honor, we will not object to that. Okay, I got to hold my camera. It's very windy out here today. So I think that was like the only time it was talked about. I think the prosecution wanted to just get that out really quickly. So there was no back and forth arguing about it. It was just removed. But I want to give you guys more detail on that, all right? Because there's a lot of confusion. So in the RICO Act, you have the K word, taking somebody, you have arson, you have aiding and abetting SEX trafficking, you have bribery, you have forced labor. Just to clarify something, Diddy is not charged with any of those actual acts. They are all acts called predicate acts within RICO. And if the jury or the feds find you guilty of 2 predicate acts within RICO, 2 in 10 years, you will be found guilty, or they'll ask the jury to find the person guilty of RICO. So it is not necessarily an arson charge, it is a predicate act within RICO, okay? Just want to make that clear. Now, in the predicate acts, there's sub-predicate acts. So there is the K word, and then let's think about it like on a file, like let's say like on your computer. So you'll have a file and you'll open it, but there's subfiles and subfiles and subfiles. So for example, under arson, there is a predicate act with arson, and then sub under arson is attempted arson. The same thing with the K word, taking somebody. There's the K word under the predicate act, but then there's also attempted K wording. And then there's also aiding and abetting SEX trafficking. That's one predicate act, but then underneath it, it's attempting. So what the prosecution did was doubly charge Diddy within the RICO. I know it might be a little bit confusing. It took me a little while to understand it too, but there is 10 predicate acts and there's sub within the predicate acts. What the prosecution did yesterday is they took out the sub. They took out the attempted arson, but still left arson there. A lot of even major news outlets are not reporting this correctly. I wanted to make sure to come here and let you guys know exactly what is going on. Arson is still there, the attempted arson isn't there. The feds were trying to say, yes, there was arson, but there was also attempt. Yes, there was the K word, but there's also attempt. To streamline and make things easier, they wanted to take out the attempts and literally just put the predicate acts to make it easy. Like we said yesterday, even though that's what the prosecution is saying, I still don't necessarily believe that it is streamlining to make it easier for the jury. I feel like the prosecution knows that they've overwhelmed the jury with things, and they don't know if the jury, again, this is just my belief, I don't think they want to have the jury have to think about too many things, because when you think about too many things, it gets confusing. So they're trying to say, oh, we just want to streamline it for you. It's like, did we prove arson and did we prove attempted arson? Instead of asking if you proved arson and attempted arson, we would just rather ask you if we proved one. That just shows me that the prosecution is not super confident with, example, the arson charge, because if they were super confident, if it was overproven, they would have left arson and they would have left attempted arson. Same thing with aiding and abetting SCX trafficking. Within RICO, there's SCX trafficking on their own counts, but the aiding and abetting SCX trafficking under RICO, they put that there and attempted aiding and abetting under. So it's just like, listen, we did not prove exactly everything that we wanted to prove, so let's just take this out, and they're putting it in under streamlining, okay? So that is the 100% facts of what happened with the predicate acts or the sub-predicate acts that were removed. Anybody that tells you that any charges were dropped, you can 100% tell them that that is incorrect. No charges, I repeat, no charges were dropped. The K word is still on deck, the arson is still on deck, and the aiding and abetting SCX trafficking is still on deck. The attempts for those three things have been removed, okay? So I hope that is clear. I'll go to the comment section after and see if you guys need me to clarify that. Let's go on to the charging conference. Yesterday, the reason why the room was so packed is that the charging conference is super, super important to the jury, because that is the rules that the jury has to follow. It is, what are the charges? There's this charge means this. If the prosecution has proven this, you must find guilty. If they have not proven this, you must find not guilty. That is why it's very, very important. And I spent an hour yesterday breaking it down for y'all. And I wanted to, like I said, it was a very, very long day yesterday, and I wasn't able to get to everything. So I want to get to, some of the things that I missed, okay? Let's start off with, sorry, my notes are a little all over the place. Let's start out with the consent charge. This is something that the prosecution wanted to add to the jury instructions and the charge details. They wanted to put in that an earlier consent, Jane or Cassie, there's this dump truck being allowed. The prosecution wanted to add in that any earlier consent does not mean that you cannot be trafficked. What does that mean? In January, if I gave consent to do 100 freak-offs, that doesn't mean in February I can't change my mind. A lot of people, even in my own chat, are like, yo, she loved it, she wanted to do it. Yes, she may have had, Jane may have had, and maybe Cassie has had as well too. We've seen text messages with them saying, I cannot wait. Cassie said, I want this to be the first freak-off or the last freak-off for the rest of my life, or something along those lines, saying that she wants to do it. It does not matter if you gave consent at one time. It doesn't mean that you cannot take it back, even if it is for one night. Yesterday I explained, really sorry about this truck, guys. Yesterday I explained that I feel when we're talking about SCX or when we're talking about couples, it gets confusing. And I told you that one of the YouTubers that I sit beside gave me a great analogy is, if somebody was to say to you, you know, I was kind of mad at my coworker and I was thinking about unaliving them every day, but I never did. But I actually only unalived them once. Or I only unalived one other person out of the 10. Like, you cannot say that, hey, we've been having a bunch of freak-offs and we liked it, but one day Cassie or Jane decided to say no, and well, it doesn't matter because you did it 9 days in a row. You can't say no now. The prosecution wants to add that, and they were able to add that, okay? So a lot of the argument of they liked it, they wanted to do it, falls by the wayside, because just because you consented at one point doesn't mean you cannot take it away after, and it doesn't mean that you could traffic me just because I said I wanted it at one point. Next thing, the defense, in response to that, said, everybody understands this. Everybody knows that if you give consent on a Monday, it doesn't mean that you're consenting on a Friday. They asked the judge to not put this in because they feel when you add this language, it's indirectly saying, yo, find Diddy guilty. So they did not want to put that in. And that was a little bit back and forth. That was really an argument back and forth for like an hour. Here's another thing they argued about yesterday. Payment. Listen to this carefully. Really sorry for all the noise, guys, and all the wind. I just said it's such a nice day in New York City, and it's windy and noisy. Sorry about that. So they also discussed, about payments. The prosecution wanted to add this. Just because he was paying for Jane's house and she was okay with freak-offs for those payments and for that home, that doesn't mean consent. So I've seen a lot of people also say this too. Yo, they got money, they got a lifestyle, they got a house, this is what they wanted, they understand that was an exchange. Again, just because you are okay with it at some point and you're okay with this kind of open relationship doesn't mean consent every second of every day. Consent is when you ask a person and you get consent. But because I consented yesterday to a home or to a vacation or whatever, I could change my mind at any time, all right? Prosecution also wanted to add that. Here is something the prosecution also wanted to add. They got off of, hey, thank you very much for the super chat. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'll try. Donielle Falk, checking in from Cincinnati. Love your work. Thank you, Trent. Thank you very much for the super chat. Get me some more coffees. I appreciate you all. I haven't eaten yet either. Okay, here's another really important one. I didn't get to tell you guys yesterday, running out of time. Cumulative conduct. I really want to know what you guys think about this. The prosecution wants the jury to be allowed to look at everything all together and not specific incidences. What does accumulative conduct mean? Accumulative conduct means you could look at Diddy and judge him over a 10-year period. You could look at Diddy and say, look at the CNN tape. Look at what he did to Cassie. Look at what he did to Jane. And even if you feel some things may have been exaggerated, look at Bono, look at everything that we presented to you. Even if there were some holes, just look all together and then decide, yo, this guy's not a good guy, this guy's a bad guy. We have at least showed you some things that he's a bad guy. So look at everything accumulatively. The defense was like, are y'all crazy? That is not how our judicial system works. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's why there's separate charges and separate counts. There's not one count for SEX trafficking. It's broken up. There is SEX trafficking, force, fraud, or coercion for Cassie. There's SEX trafficking, force, fraud, and coercion for Jane. And then there is SEX trafficking under the Mann Act for Cassie, and then under the Mann Act for Jane. Those are 4 counts. It is supposed to be separate, and the jury should look at things separately and give their verdict separately. The prosecution is trying to say, just look at it all together, and if you think one is not, because you said the other one was, just put him guilty. Crazy work. I feel like the prosecution was asking for some legitimate things. I thought that was crazy. They totally argued about that. One of the last things here, and this is why I saved this for last because I really want to get your guys' opinion on this. Acts of people selling themselves for SEX, okay, the P word. So the defense was trying to say that the entertainers were not paid for SEX. They were paid to dance. They were paid to just, show up and give Diddy and Cassie company. And as a result of that, that was what they were paid for. If you guys remember, Diddy used to call cowboys for angels, and they were entertainers. So we were paid you to entertain us. It just so happens that we kicked things off together, and we decided to have SEX afterwards. That was Diddy's defense. The prosecution now wants to change a wording in the during the charging conference, and they wanted to say not just SEX, they wanted to say acts of prostitution. So what does acts mean? Acts are not necessarily SEX, but now the acts of it. So is dancing, is maybe taking some of your clothes off, is that acts of selling yourself? I feel, and the reason why I brought this to the end, I feel the reason why the prosecution is trying to put acts instead of just the P word, and acts meaning dancing, showing up, anything that suggests that you may be trying to sell SEX now comes into the fold. I think the reason why they're asking for this, and if the judge decides to let them put that word, just acts of selling yourself, not selling yourself, acts of selling yourself. The reason why they put that in, and they even said it, they said, Alexandra Shapiro, who's Diddy's defense attorney, she said when she was making her Rule 29, which is trying to get the case thrown out, she said, even in the Mann Act, there's no proof beyond a reasonable doubt because Diddy and Cassie and Diddy and Jane never testified. Nobody testified, even the entertainers, nobody testified that they were actually paid for SEX. Everybody testified. Even the Punisher said, I was paid for entertainment. Because they brought that up during the Rule 29 motion, now the prosecution was able to know, oh, that's what you're going to say in your closing arguments? No problem. During the charging conference, we're going to make sure we change the we change the selling yourself to not just selling yourself, but acts of selling yourself. Now, if you pay somebody for dancing or you pay for somebody to come over for entertainment, now that falls under the Mann Act. Huge, huge mistake by Diddy's team. I cannot tell you how monumental. I'm not going to go back into Rule 29 because I did a live just explaining that. But everybody knows that Rule 29 is just a technicality. It's something that all defense attorneys do to ask the judge before it goes to the jury. Hey, the prosecution never made a sound case. It shouldn't even go to the jury. There's no way the jury could find them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Throw it out. It's a technicality. It's something that you could use in a mistrial or something. It's something that you can use in appeal court. 99 times out of 10 or 100, it's never awarded. So why give most of your closing arguments in your Rule 29 before the before the charging conference, and you're giving a leg up to the prosecution? They're sitting down during the Rule 29. It's like, okay, yeah, good point. Yep, that's another good point. Oh yeah, yes, they weren't paid for SCX. They were paid for dancing. No problem. We'll adjust that in charging conference. What else, Ms. Shapiro? They were there taking notes. They went back and they were like, hey, everything she said yesterday about Rule 29, yeah, we want to change that all in the charging conference, so now they cannot bring anything like that up in their closing arguments. That is just, what a huge mistake. What a huge mistake. Whenever I do say that Diddy's team made a mistake, I always like to preface it with, they are the best lawyers in the United States of America, the biggest defense attorneys in the United States of America. I have maximum respect for Nicole Westmoreland. I have maximum respect for Brian Steele, Xavier, Tenny, Mark. Mark's a little bit of a joker, but they're still great lawyers. So maybe there's a strategy that I'm not picking up on, and maybe they have more things in the cut. Maybe they got more things in their backpack that they feel they didn't disclose during Rule 29, and this could have been sacrificing a couple of pawns. If you guys play chess, sometimes you sacrifice a rook. Sometimes, is it a rookie? Well, no. A horse or whatever it is. Sometimes you sacrifice some pieces to get the queen or get the king to move, and then you're like, oh, the other person thinks they're gonna win, and you think they have an upper hand, and then you're like, wow, I didn't see this next move. So let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. But from what we know now, a lot of the changes that were asked by the prosecution yesterday during the charging conference, a lot of the things, they didn't even hide it. They said, Alexandra Shapiro said this in Rule 29, so because she says this, and because we know they're going to try to do this, we would like to change this rule, that rule, that rule. They said it, and the looks on their faces were like, damn, maybe we shouldn't have given up so much of our sauce. So we'll just leave it at that, okay? I do have a little bit of a prediction until we know some more information. I wrote down here, if Diddy loses, this is going to be a major part of the reason why he lost, what the information they gave out in Rule 29, giving the prosecution insight onto what the defense is going to say in their closing arguments. Again, my opinion, with the information we have, we will hear closing arguments on Friday. Maybe they got more ammunition, maybe they got more things in their backpack, and they want to use this to make the feds feel like they have a leg up and they made a mistake, okay? It could be a move. I'm going to go over super quickly because I'm at 23 minutes. I'm going to go over super quickly and just highlight some of the other things that they said in the charging conference. They talked about conspiracy charges, which is Diddy's co-conspirators. They were trying to say that the feds were trying to say not everybody had to know what was going on because, again, in Rule 29, Alexandra Shapiro was saying, hey, Brendan Paul didn't know this, and the associates didn't know that. Yes, they picked up DRUGs for Diddy, but they didn't know exactly what was going on. The prosecution was trying to say, in this count under RICO, not everybody had to know exactly what was going on. In most RICO charges, they have to know, they have to conspire together to commit the crime. So the feds are trying to change that here. Like I said, I'm going to go over quickly. There's a line that the defense wanted to take out. Action speaks louder than words. They got that removed, which is trying to just balance out the evidence, right? Some things are hearsay, some things are in a text message, so they wanted to take that out. Just a side note, words a punctuation could change everything in a charging conference. Think about any sort of legal document. The word act in front of selling yourself changes something. A line like action speaks louder than words, that means that words are not really important, meaning that text messages are not really important. So taking that out is really, really important. Another thing they wanted to take out is agreeing that one or other persons need to agree on the pattern of racketeering. Again, that's talking to Diddy and his entire crew. They're trying to say that, hey, not everybody has to be aware of the crime, which doesn't make sense. The whole point of RICO is an organization of group of people coming together to cause a crime. This here was another thing. Group does not have to have the common interest. They lost on that. Not everybody has to think the same way in the organization. The feds lost in that. How can you try to say not everybody has to think the same way? The whole point of RICO is the fact that everybody's conspiring together. Just gonna go for quickly. By the way, if you guys want more details about this, check out my live yesterday. I go into detail about everything, okay? The defense wants to add that each person must conspire to commit the acts, and not only the acts, but the elements of the acts. That's really a reach. The defense lost on that one. So the judge was pretty fair. He gave some things to the prosecution, he gave some things to the defense. Number 6, don't charge the jury on forced, so they talked about forced labor. The government tried to put in the fact that forced labor could involve SEX services. They got denied on that. They're like, SEX services is not labor. What else? They talked about mens rea. That's what talking about if Diddy was aware of what he was doing. And the last one here is, I have a note here. This is when they started talking about SEX trafficking and really going back and forth and really getting very excited, and the judge took a 10-minute break. Go see my live. I really break that down. They talked about immunity. They talked about removing the headings in the jury selection, and they also talked about removing the table of contents. Like I said, go see yesterday. That is just a move that the prosecution is trying to do, remove the table of contents. They also talked about voluntary intoxication. They also talked about Alexandra Shapiro said, Judge, I just want to put you on notice that anything that you overruled and didn't give us, we reserve the right to bring that up in appeal court. Last thing is scheduling. Today, we were supposed to go 9 to 5, and it was supposed to be the prosecution doing their closing arguments, and as soon as they end, it was supposed to be the defense to start their closing arguments. Alexandra said that Mark wanted her to ask the judge permission to start fresh on Monday. He says he doesn't want to start at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock or whenever the prosecution ends. He wants a fresh jury, a fresh start, and he doesn't want to be interrupted. He doesn't want to give half his closing at the end of the day today and then a half tomorrow. He wants a full, wide-eyed, awake jury. The government tried to deny that and say, hey, that's just a test move, a chess move. They're trying to play games. They are trying to get an extra day to prepare. The judge says, listen, I think it's fair. You guys have one day. They have another day, okay? Where are we now? I think we're done with this. Let me just see where we're at. Okay, so that's it. Let's go over to jury deliberations and projections. Okay, let's talk to you about the jury. Hold on, I have this as number 2. Okay, let's talk about the jury, okay? After closing arguments are done, whatever time they are done, just want to make sure they're not calling people in. After the jury deliberations start, everybody is saying that there could be a hung jury, there'd be a mistrial. Just want to let you guys know something. For it to be a hung jury, the jury can't go in, let's say they start on Monday. They can't go in and say, hey, let's just take a vote. Guilty, not guilty, talk for 2 hours and be like, hey, judge, you know what? We can't decide. We're a hung jury. It has to be a hopelessly hung jury. It has to be days and days of trying. The judge will keep on sending them back in to try, and when they are hopelessly hung and hopelessly deadlocked, that is when the judge will say, all right, this is a mistrial, this is a hung jury. So my prediction, and also some legal experts' prediction, is we will not see a mistrial before July the 4th, because let's say they start on Monday, they'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Court should be closed on Thursday. By the way, I heard the judge, if he wants to, he's a federal judge, he can open up the courtroom on Thursday, which is a holiday. But he will not grant a mistrial after 3 days only. Okay, you need to be hopelessly hung up. Next thing is, if they only reach a verdict on example 2 out of the 3, they cannot come out and read halfway. They can only come out and give verdicts on all counts. So there's 5 counts. Let's say they go in and they say, all right, we find him, we're hung up on RICO, we're split on RICO, but we have the counts for all of the SCX trafficking. No, he will keep sending them back, and it doesn't matter. The Mann Act, you guys have a verdict. SCX trafficking, you have a verdict. We don't have a verdict for RICO. No, you cannot come out and read until you are hopelessly hung on RICO. Again, they have to be hopelessly. It can't just be, yes, we have one, or yes, we have the other, okay? And the last thing is, I want you guys to answer me on this. Hold on, are they calling us in? Not too sure what's going on. Hold up. 1 second, guys. The cops are here, the security guards are here. Okay. I want to ask you guys this question. With the July 4th weekend coming, experts have said that typically most jurors will rush and give a verdict when a weekend is coming up or a holiday that's coming up. I've told you guys repeatedly that these jurors are super tired, they're cranky, they're done with hearing repetitive things, etc. And with that being said, if they get the case Monday and July 4th is coming up, if they do rush to give a verdict on all counts, do you think that goes to the defense's advantage or to the prosecution's advantage? Just a note, O.J. Simpson's trial went on for 9 months. Experts said they could deliberate up until 2 months. They came out with a verdict in less than 4 hours and was a non-guilty verdict. Hold on. So with that said, it being a non-guilty verdict after all of that, I think, just my opinion, I think if the jury does rush and they say, hey, we want to get this verdict out before July 4th, I don't think they will rush and give a verdict of guilty. I don't think you want to rush and sentence a man for life just because you want to go home. I think that works out to the advantage of the defense, because if you're rushing, which a lot of experts say juries love to rush before a weekend, and for sure before a long weekend after a long trial, if you have to rush, you're going to just be like, you know what, I can't just, put a man in jail for the rest of his life just because I want to go spend my July 4th weekend. I think the advantage is not guilty on all charges, just so I can go home. Some people are saying it works against the defense, and they're like, we don't want to stay here, and I do think he's a bad guy, and I do believe a lot of the things. I maybe have a little bit of doubt, but just for the sake of going home, just put him in jail for the rest of his life. I don't think that makes sense, but what do you guys think? All right, somebody says defense advantage, exactly. You think the Eagle Way is trial or no? Hi Trent from Glaston, Scotland. What up, Scotland? Looking very dapper young man, definitely hotty toddy, thank you very much. What SCX personnel, okay. Prosecution cannot charge a lot after the trial is complete. The jury instructions must, okay. What do you guys think about what I just asked? What do you think? Is this the advantage of the prosecution, or is this an advantage for the for the defense? The jury, if they decide, yo guys, we're gonna get this done. We are gonna get this done before July 4th. Do you think that is the advantage? I'm just gonna pack up so I'm ready to go. Do you think that is the advantage of the prosecution, or do you think of the defense? I think that is a huge advantage to the defense. Yeah, defense. See, exactly. You're not gonna rush and just put some man in jail. Like, even if you don't like Diddy, let's say if it was a 2-year, 3 or 4 year, I can maybe see that. But yo, RICO is a life. His whole life will be over, done. And I'm not on either side or not. I'm just thinking if you somebody said prosecution. Okay, I think it could go either way depending on the jury's current position. That makes sense for sure. If you are already voting a little bit, if you're already thinking guilty and you maybe have a little bit of doubt, you might rush it. But what about the people who are on the not guilty side, or what about the people who are like half and half? You probably are going to be like, yo, hey, that's just my opinion. Somebody said the defense. Somebody says Mike. Somebody says F sound. Something happened with the sound. I'm with you. That's the advantage of the defense. He's going to turn informant. Somebody said defense advantage. Sweet dreams. He's not guilty of nothing he's being charged with. So major evidence was testimony. Somebody said good work. Yeah, guys. All right, man. So I think you guys pretty much agree with what I'm saying here. I love this. Muffled. What happened with the mic? What happened with the mic? You guys should hear me, right? Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Microphone went muffled. Your sound is muffled, not clear at all. Anyways, you know what? That's a sign that I should get off now, anyways, because they're gonna bring us in around 2 minutes. I'll be back out at lunchtime. I'll give you guys inside information on what's going on the prosecution's closing argument. All right. Stay tuned. I'll be back between 12 and 1 today. Thank you guys for hanging with me. I hope you liked it. Sorry if it's muffled. I will be back. I will be back at lunchtime. All right, guys. Peace. Somebody said yes, it's okay. All right, guys. Peace. I'll see you later.